This is our good buddy David Katch, who is student body president at Centennial High School. And I don't know too many student body presidents that hang out with special needs kids. Do you? And ever since Ben moved away to Nashville to music school, David has played a very significant role in being another big brother to Nathan. So we asked him just to share a couple minutes of whatever's on his heart.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time with Nathan on the weekends, especially on Saturdays. And so I want to tell you a story, just one of those intimate moments I had with him. We'd have a lot of conflicts sometimes, and I'd try to incorporate him with my circle of friends. Just let him hang out, be one of the guys. And through those times, I realized he's really just a teenager. He looks different. He sounds different. He can't talk as well, but he's just a teenager too. He'd have those times when he wouldn't fit in, like all teenagers have. They have those times when they just don't fit in with all their peers. They still feel alienated. And he was just like that, not because of his Down syndrome, but because he was a teenager. And there's a gathering called the Barn. That's just for the youth groups of the East Metro area. It's out over by Barlow. And so I take him to that sometimes too. There'd be 80, 90 kids, and it was just a deep time to worship and, learn. And one time we were sitting in the back, and he was just having a real rough time. Just wouldn't pay attention, wouldn't settle down. And, I was paying attention to the speaker, and he left, like he always does. And, I noticed, I started looking around the room. It wasn't that big of a room, and I didn't see him anywhere inside. So I went outside. And the barn is in a tree farm area. So I started looking for him, and I found him, just a little farther out into the trees by himself, just standing there. It was really cold. It was like in December. And I went up to him, and, I tried to get him back inside. I'm like, hey, let's go back inside. And he just said no. And, so I stood there a while just standing there, and I felt the sense of fear over him. So I asked him, are you afraid? He said, yeah. And I asked him, well, can we pray to Jesus? Can we pray? And he said, no. And at that time, I didn't understand exactly what was going on. I was just like, okay, let's just stand here and, we'll go back inside eventually, But what I realized from that story, from that time, is that he was a bigger man than me. He was the bigger man to say that right now, Jesus, I'm afraid. And I don't want to believe. I want to believe, but I just can't because I'm afraid. And Jesus had a really, really tough calling for Nathan. And he just said, I'm afraid. And it's okay to say that, because Jesus will keep standing next to us and say, I still love you. And I think he was a greater man than me sometimes. He was a greater man than all those speakers and all the teachers sometimes. It reminds me of the story of David and Mephibosheth, chapter 9 of 2 Samuel. And that was Saul's grandson, Jonathan's son. And David asks, are there any more sons of Saul? And they say, yes, there's this one. And he was crippled. He was disabled just like Nathan. And so David has him come into his courts. He has him come into his feast. And he says, I want you to stay. I want you to sit at the place of honor. And he said to David, what does a dead dog like me have to serve a king? And I think Nathan probably said that to Jesus a few times. And we all say it to him a few times. What do I have? And that's when Jesus tells us, you have everything. I've given you everything. And
wow. The value, the value that God has planted in the soul of a human being is very great, isn't it? It was so great, the value was so great that God was willing to sacrifice His Son, Jesus, so that we could be purchased by His blood, so that we could be bought back from the tyranny of this world and this life and be given new life. So those were wise words from a young man. Yeah.